Pokemon is something I don't really need to give any introduction to. It's one of, if not the most successful video game franchise. It's a series that caused widespread criticism because people thought it would be teaching children gambling. And it is also an anime which caused some problem. And most definitely nowadays, it's a former shell of what it used to be. At least that's what people keep telling me. Hey, my name is John, also known as the Proteus Hater. And me personally, I've never really been one to play the games with the mons in them. I don't really own anything of any Nintendo consoles aside from a Wii, so the only experiences I've had with Pokemon was this game called Battle Revolution, which from what I've been able to piece together myself, it's just basically a prettier version of the Stadium games on N64, and the only other games I've ever played were through morally questionable means. I mean, I liked what I played, but I've never really been a humongous fan. But then again, I've only ever really put in an hour into these games, so I guess I didn't really give it enough of my time to grip me. I forgot, games only tend to get better after 40 hours anyway. But now where I got most of my Pokemon experience was through the card game and the anime, both of which I've completely forgotten everything about aside from nowadays watching YouTubers covering the card game and seeing James being based.
Let's blow those whining women back to the Dark Ages right where they belong!
But why do I bring this to your attention today? Well, if you didn't read the title, shame on you. But throughout history, there's been a lot of media that actually attempted to cash into the whole monster catching genre that Pokemon made popular in the first place. Probably the best and well-known ones are Yu-Gi-Oh! And Digimon. They're pretty much in the same ballpark, but throughout history we got shit like Bakugan, Monsuno, Slugterra, the latter two of which I'm sure you've never heard shit about, and if I've just unlocked a core memory that was hidden in the dark recesses of your mind, then give me a sub, become a member, join my Discord server, follow my Twitch, follow me on Twitter, follow my OnlyFans. But you'd be hard-pressed to find something that came even close to the industry giant that Pokemon was and still is to this day. Until 2024, that is. Now, aside from other shows and toys that try to capitalize on the groundwork Pokemon has set, video games have also been a breeding ground for inspiration. Now, obviously, some of the aforementioned shows I mentioned had video game adaptations, some of which I really liked, like the Bakugan Battle Brawlers games I used to play a shit ton of on the Wii, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories on the PS1 and Digimon World on the same platform, which I also remember playing quite a lot of, but I was really young, so I guess I was too busy throwing temper tantrums and shitting myself to really remember the nitty-gritty details. But as time has gone on, there have been a numerous amount of games that have taken the monster catching formula and put their own spin on it. Games like Slime Rancher, Bug Snack, Shin Megami Tensei, Monster Hunter Story, Cassette Beasts, and all of these other games I found on this Game Rant article. But starting January 19th, 2024, history and the monster catching and taming genre was changed forever. Welcome to Palworld, ladies and gentlemen. A game much like its inspiration, I'd argue needs less of an introduction. Getting announced all the way back in 2021, back when YouTubers needed to cut a disease out of their vocabulary to have a green check mark, and all of us were still mostly stuck in our homes. We were treated by this new game that looked like it was taking the basis of the Pokemon series, as well as your everyday typical survival game, and giving it Second Amendment rights. And me and every single American that watched this was already sold. Just the concept alone was so intriguing. Survival elements, Pokemon, guns, slavery. This was definitely something that was worth looking out for, but seeing that there was no set release date, all we could do was wait. And I mean, that's fine. Around that time, I had Resident Evil Village, so my priorities were already set. But in the back of my mind, I'd always wondered what happened to American Pokemon. It wasn't until one of my buddies, SkiBomb123456, DM'd me with an article stating that the game was coming day one to Game Pass that I had my eyes officially back on it. And on the 19th of January, it finally happened. The game released, and oh boy, has history been made. But let's not talk about that yet. Let's first get into what Palworld actually is and why I think it's everything that modern day Pokemon should be. So as I eagerly awaited for the game to finally launch so I could start downloading it, I woke up at 2 a.m, finished my Lethal Company video. By the way, thanks for the support on all that video, by the way, love you. And after all that was said and done, at 10 a.m. GMT +2, it was made available for download. I started downloading it, went to take a nap because I woke up at an unreasonable hour to finish a video on time, and when I awoke, it was ready. I then clicked play, and was immediately met by a black screen. My hopes were nearly almost dashed, until I did what every sane person does in a situation like this. Have a mental breakdown. And after that, I thankfully was able to get the game working after restarting my PC, and here we are, Palworld. And let me tell you right now, the copyright infringement just seeps from this main menu alone. We've got Pokémon, we've got Fortnite, we've got grass. How this wasn't cause for a lawsuit from the beginning is beyond me. And off the bat, we've got 4 options. Start game. Wonder what that possibly could do. Join a multiplayer game. The survival guide, which up until writing the script, I actually forgot was a thing. And options. Yippee! Also, by the way, would you believe me that a quit game option was only added later on? Great working there, Mr. Palworld. But let's be honest, if I wanted to sit in the game menu without doing anything for 3 hours, I'd just play a Kojima game. So let's start us up and see what we can do. I selected the world name, decided that human interaction disgusts me, left the game on normal mode, and I didn't really dick around with any of the world settings, and here we go. We load into the character creator, and my, the beautiful things we can create in this. I make the character look exactly like me, see the intro to Bloodborne, get told by an Amazon Kindle that the towers are the key, and the tree holds the truth, have no idea what that means, and set off into this new unknown world. I explored the opening area of the game a little bit, picked up a piece of wood and built me a primitive workbench. Things were slowly but surely starting to come together. I leveled up, touched a rock that glowed, and thought it would be a good idea to talk to one of the NPCs, which kindly enough gave me some wood for my troubles. How kind the denizens of this place are. But that's not what I came here to do. I then decided to wander forth and met up with the locals of the island. And oh my goodness, look how cute he is. This hurts me more than it hurts you, little one. After asserting my dominance and admiring the ragdoll physics of the game, I decided that it was time to set up an area of operations. But first, much like our ancestors before us, I made club. This thing makes me slightly feel less bad for pummeling in the skull of a pink Meowth. And after a long day of gathering resources like food and materials, and even ethically acquiring the workforce, I have finally established my home, and this, my friends, is where the journey of Palworld truly begins. Now, if my very abridged recap of my first few hours of Palworld wasn't indicative enough, the game is a survival game. We got the huge open world, mining, crafting items, making food, all that sort of shit. And if you've played anything like Minecraft or Rust and stuff, you'll probably be very well versed into what goes on in Palworld, except trade in the casual racism for slavery and then you got the whole picture. But from my understanding of Palworld, it also mixes in elements from another survival game that Vin Diesel really likes, and that's Ark Survival Evolved. And from my understanding, Ark is pretty much just a survival game with dinosaurs, except when I tried playing it for the first time, it chomped 100 gigabytes of my hard drive space, my character shit himself the minute I loaded in, and then I got killed by a dinosaur. So let's just say that my first experience was nothing short of excellent. But from what I've heard, where Palworld is very similar to Ark is with the introduction of a technology tree that the more you level your character up, the more items you'll be able to craft later on, like more weapons and more tools to help with the production of materials. Now, I'm sure that this is probably something that's in Ark too, but in Palworld, the more you do stuff like mining, building, killing, catching, you're going to be able to level up your character with different attributes like attack, defense, and the usual RPG stuff. The two in this game that I mainly chose to focus on was weight and work speed. Weight, because not only does it allow you to piss off a balance board in Wii Fit, it allows you to carry more stuff, which, let me tell you, the later on you play this game, it will be the most useful one out of all of them. And work speed, because I've just spent 2 hours trying to gather all these mats, so I'm not gonna spend another 2 hours just to build all this shit. Now, when it comes down to the basic gameplay of Palworld, it may look like a bootleg battle royale, but in reality, I don't think Pokémon are the only people that should be suing. The game's combat and exploration are essentially an amalgamation of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Dark Dark Souls. Breath of the Wild, because it's got a huge open world you're freely allowed to explore with close to zero restrictions, and Dark Souls because there's a stamina bar and dodge rolling. And I guess if you want to have a little bit more of a specific comparison, I think this game could be compared closer to Elden Ring in that case, because hell, the pals you're later able to fight even have similar music. And oh yeah, I think it's about time I mentioned the pals, shouldn't I? It's not like it's the game's namesake or anything. Throughout your journey, you're gonna be coming across a fuck ton of different pals. All of them can range from cute to more cute. But don't let those looks deceive you. They'll turn you into a husk in the blink of an eye. And these pals serve a bunch of different things. They can help you craft WMDs at your base. They can help you cook food, work the mines, and help commit deforestation. And what each pal is good for is going to be made available to you in your pal decks, which gives you a good synopsis on each pal, as well as their stats and habitats, which makes farming for them a hell of a lot easier. And you can do one of two things when you're out and about hunting for pals in the wild. You can either kill them, then you get whatever materials they have, like pal fluid, and food that you'll need to feed yourself and the rest of your base. Or you can catch them, which gives you the benefits of the material and food they have, but you also, you know, catch them? And pray tell, how does one capture these pals? Well, this is the part where the game takes most of its cues from Pokémon, because here we got the pal spheres, baby. Just press the Q key when you've bludgeoned them to the point before death, and then boom, you've got another member inducted against their will. And then you can either send them off to work, or keep them on you at all times to do the dirty work for you. Now, as of right now, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna stay like this, you're only able to carry up to 5 pals on you at once, and sadly, you're only allowed to use one at a time during battles unless you capture a specific pal, but I'm not telling you which one it is on this video. I'm not a tutorial channel. And as you can expect, they'll automatically enter combat and help you out with any enemy, and on top of that, the pals that you have with you can also assist you in gathering resources around the world when you're not at your base. Like my Digitoys, for example, that I use to help me mine for ore. He's pretty shit at his job, but at least it's a morale boost for me. Now, another thing you can do with your equipped pals are utilize special moves with them, whether it be something for combat like a special ability, or something that helps speed up the flow of moving around the world, like creating mounts that you can craft for certain pals for either land or air travel. And for some of them, you're even able to do some really cool stuff, like with the Fox Sparks, for example, you can actually equip a harness to it and use it as a makeshift flamethrower, and this Coco from Foster's Home knockoff that can shit explosive eggs. I find it quite amusing. I did a giggle. So that adds a little bit of a strategic layer for what pals you want to take with you, not only for combat, but also for resource gathering, and to make exploration less of a hassle. Now yes, I did mention that you can enter combat with your pals, but you don't really have much of a say in what they do, except for the frequency at which they attack, and that kinda sucks a little bit, but they get the job done at the end of the day, and if they're at a high enough level, this isn't usually a problem. But as for your character, unlike most protagonists in these kinds of games and shows, your character doesn't pussy out on combat and gets right in the action. I mean, my character did just casually beat a sheep and cat to death with his bare fists, and much like Jason Brody from Far Cry 3, that was just the spark of the bloodlust. Your character can equip a whole bunch of different weapons, ranging from melee stuff like your spears, which he can't actually throw for some reason. Listen, I think copying Rust wouldn't have gotten you into more trouble than you already are, to a baseball bat. Shame there's no spikes in the game, because I would have loved to do a little Negan cosplay, to later on being able to craft ranged weapons like bows and crossbows with different stats like fire and poison, to the thing we were all waiting for, the fucking guns. Starting all the way from a dinky little musket to ending off with the damn rocket launcher, the latter of which I have still yet to unlock for myself, so subscribe to this lovely person right here. They touched way less grass than I to achieve this. And weapons don't just extend to your character. No way, once you craft yourself a pal bench, you can give some of your pals some firearms of their own, like giving a monkey an assault rifle, which we all know is just the greatest idea. And I guess the best way to describe the gunplay, firstly, if you've played Fortnite, then you've played this. Just point, aim, and shoot. You know how this works. If not, then stop going outside for just one day. And secondly, it kind of replaces the need for melee weapons, so I guess Obi-Wan wouldn't really like this game. Though just don't think that you're capable of sniping these things like you're a turbo sweat in a COD match, because firearms do more damage the closer you get, so don't bitch out just yet. You've still gotta get real up close and personal. Now, aside from all the nitty-gritties of combat and, like, casual employment. Let me talk a little bit about the exploration. When you're out and about, you're gonna be exploring this massive map, each having different and unique biomes that houses different materials or pals that you can capture. You can either run, fly, glide, or climb any parts of it, so it truly offers you a lot of freedom as to how you want to approach these locations. And hell, if you're a little bit too lazy, the game at the very least offers you a fast travel in the form of these fancy rocks that gives you a single technology point you can spend at the tree. And aside from just finding different pals and mats, when you explore, you can locate certain NPCs that can give you certain items, journal entries for if you want to take over the Game Theory channel after March, settlements that can house different kinds of merchants, like ones that can sell you certain materials and consumable items, to straight up weapons and ammo, and if you're feeling a little bit quirky, you can just find a trader that you can sell and buy different kinds of pals from. And it's from this guy where you tend to be able to rack up the big bucks, especially if you sell them a pal that has a very high level. Fuck, it's also just really nice to be able to buy certain pals you just haven't found or been able to catch yet, so if you don't like playing the game, this is probably the best option for you. There's even this creepy black market merchant that you can find throughout the game that pretty much does the exact same thing, but I think he has a combination of pals and items that you can buy. I might be wrong though, I only really encountered him once and never looked back if he spawns in the exact same location, so don't quote me on this. You're also able to find stuff like chests and crystals scattered throughout the world. Chests containing certain things like food, money, and materials, as well as keys, which you're gonna need to use in order to open up other types of chests, and these crystals containing stuff called pal souls that I'll get into in a little bit. Another really cool thing you can find on your journeys are certain dungeons that you can explore to once again find certain materials and different kinds of pals, but you also get rewarded at the end of them with a boss fight against a higher level pal, and once beating it by either killing it or capturing it, you also have 2 chests that you can unlock that gives you some goodies, mainly stuff that you can sell at the merchants for a massive payout, and you can access these dungeons again at any time. And I think they're procedurally generated, so you won't get the same layout and boss twice. I think the only thing that stays the same is the level of the dungeon. Now, like I've also mentioned, there's also a bunch of different biomes that you can enter, and if you've noticed that really nice little bar down there, yes, honey, we've got ourselves a temperature gauge, because your character can't exactly just walk ass naked in a tundra. This can be mitigated by just crafting the right kinds of clothing, which are not really too big of a problem to make, or you can just buy them off of merchants, so you do you at the end of the day. Or you can just die from frostbite, who's stopping you? Also, sometimes you can run into some not friendly human characters holding up these poor little pals in cages, so that means that they need to die, obviously. Oh, and fun fact, you can catch them too, and apparently in this world, that counts as being inhumane, but this doesn't. And while you're just busy running around doing dungeon runs like a little goblin and killing off the human populace of the island, another thing that you'll notice on the map are these specific pals dotted all over the place. These are the bosses of the game. Do they contain any plot significance? Not sure. They're just bosses, so you either need to A, capture them, B, not capture them, and upon beating them you get yourself a shit ton of XP, as well as an ancient technology point that I will get into right now. So I've described quite a lot about the world and what you're able to do and find in it, but I'm starting to feel a little homesick, so let me talk about the one place you'll unquestionably be spending most of your time in, and that is your little sweatshop. I mean your little humble abode. Where here, we're able to care for our little and somewhat large friends that we've made along this journey. They're not paying rent, so they need to earn their keep one way, right? Yes, over here, this is where you can create anything your heart can think of. From crafting your own ammunition for weapons, to the weapons themselves, to more lively things like beds for you and your pals so that they can feel what it feels like to be loved for once. To hot springs that prove that these little shits are getting spoiled. This is the place where a lot of the cool shit is made. You can build the literal might of industry in the small little plot of land, from logging sites to quarries that somehow produce infinite amounts of wood and stone, to furnaces so you can transform any coal and ore you find into ingots of varying value. You can even take up tailoring to make yourself some Palworld riz so that you don't die in alien weather conditions. You're even able to convert stone into paldium fragments so that you can craft a multitude of different pal spheres ranging in effectiveness. The list just keeps on going and going. Or should I say, the technology tree just keeps going down. Oh yes, and speaking of the tech tree, you'll also notice this purple section off to the side. This is apparently ancient technology, which its points you're only able to get after defeating bosses. And from the stuff you're able to unlock here, the ones that I got are feed bags, which allows you to have additional slots to just carry food, to a grappling hook that has no sound, so don't think that this is gonna make you feel like a bat, and the last notable thing I unlocked was a sphere launcher, which sucks. Oh, and you're also able to get this PAL distiller that if you fuse a bunch of the same PALs into it at once, you can create a higher level version of that PAL. And as you can imagine, with all the shit that you're able to do at your base, how does one keep tabs on everyone? Well, keeping tabs on them comes in the form of this little menu at the top right of the screen that displays the current status of the working PAL from when they're in good condition to when they're depressed or incapacitated. And for the life of me, some of the status effects that your PALs can get shocked with makes absolutely no sense to me. I've got this one that tells me that one of my pals are feeling down because of poor working conditions. My brother, we live on a plot of land and I built you a fucking bed and a hot spring and I provide you your damn food by slaughtering your own kind. So please tell me, what of this place does not meet your standards? And sometimes I have no idea how to treat some of these effects. What do I do if someone is feeling neglect? There's a feature in this game that allows you to pet your pals, which proves that you still have some humanity left in you, but does this actually do anything? I've petted a depressed pal constantly, and that did nothing. So who's actually neglecting you? Is there a workplace affair that I'm not aware of? But aside from some of those, I've really not noticed anything these supposed debuffs really cause that hinder your production, so I guess they're just a little bit attention hungry. But as I've mentioned, sometimes pals can get incapacitated. I assume workplace injuries aren't a foreign concept in this game, and once that happens, you're going to need to take them to the heart and soul of your base, the very thing we've crafted to claim this land as our own, the PAL box. And in here you can do quite a bunch of things. The main thing that you're going to be using this thing for is assign pals to the base so that they can do certain jobs. I should mention though, earlier I did say pals have certain stats. Well, that extends not only to their overall gamey stats, but also to what they'll be specializing in at the base. These can be handiwork, where pals will help you build and make things faster, watering, which... well, take a guess. Logging, which produces more wood, and yeah, you get the idea. And you can see all of that in the PAL box. It's also here where you're able to assign what pals to take along with you, and an important thing that I need to mention that will relieve a lot of you is that pals don't really die. The ones you caught, anyway. I don't know what happens to these ones, but in order to revive them, you just need to drop them in the PAL box for 10 minutes, and then they'll be good to serve you for another day. The production cycle truly never ends. It's also here from the PAL box where you can fast travel to different areas on the map, and in the PAL box is probably the only real place where you can get listed objectives for the game. And what I mean by that is that you're actually able to level up your base here. Now, in order to do that, you're gonna need to do some specific tasks from this list. But once you do that, your reward mainly just comes from the fact that you're able to add more pals to work in the base so that they can help speed up production. Now, on a little bit of a side note, I have managed to do this myself, but I'm not sure when this is made available to you, but at a certain level for your base, you're able to add another base. I'm not really sure how many you can add, but it's kind of useful, like maybe to use the second base exclusively for wood and stone and that kind of stuff. But to me personally, that's just another form of micromanaging I'm not really all that well equipped to deal with at this point, so in all honesty, I might just scrap my second base and send every worker there back to the job. It also gives me two things to worry about at the same time, because it would not be a survival game unless at some point you get fucking raided. Yes, at certain points on your stay on the island, you'll just be minding your own business and then either mercs, PETA, or other wild pals will just come storming to your base. To my knowledge, because I got my ass handed to me quite a few times after raids, they only just really break your shit and kill you and your pals, but they don't really do much other than that. I don't think they steal anything, so they just seem to be more of an annoyance if you lose. But they can give you some really handy stuff for if you win. Hell, if you get attacked by wild pals, you might be able to catch a few for yourself, so there's always a benefit if you're well prepared for shit to go down.
Oh yeah, and I just realized this as I was busy recording. You can also incubate eggs so you can hatch new pals. So I just forgot about it because I've stopped using it later in the game.
The one and only last thing I can really think of the top of my head that I still need to mention is that you can build this statue of power thing that just looks like Lucario, okay? His name in-game is Anubis, but I don't give a shit, that is Lucario, so I'll just be calling him that from now on. Now, upon crafting a Lucario statue, you're able to do one of two things. Either buff your character's capturing abilities, and also buff your currently equipped pals from stuff like their health to their work speed, etc. Now, to upgrade both of these things, you need to collect the following. For your character, you need to find these things called Liftmonk effigies. Collecting these will increase your capture power, and the higher level the capturing power needs to be, well then you can bet your ass you're gonna be needing to collect a hell of a lot more effigies. Thankfully, they emit this very eye-catching glow, so you'll always be able to tell where they are at a distance. And to increase pal stats, you're just gonna need to explore till you find these crystals lying around the place that contain pal souls. And once you reach a certain level in the pal stats, you're gonna have to be looking for other types of pal souls scattered throughout the map, either purple or yellow. Another thing that I forgot to mention during the exploration thing is that you can sometimes come across these trees that contains different kinds of fruit that you're able to feed to your pals, which give them different abilities, some of which can give a pal an ability from a different kind of element. And these different kinds of abilities can be set in the party menu. Or if exploration isn't your kind of thing, the economy always thrives in this game. But from all of that, I'm pretty sure that that is every single thing that there is to know about Palworld so far. But however, there is one last thing that I need to bring up, and that are the tower boss fights. You see, during your ventures, you'll stumble across these towers, the one that you've seen in the game's title screen. Here, you'll fight what I guess is this game's equivalent to gym leaders. So far, I've only encountered two of them, and where one I was able to beat, the other one I got my ass stomped in hard by, so take that information as you will. But in killing them, it gets you the most XP and the most ancient technology points, so it's definitely worth the effort. Plus that, you get probably what's the only other time in this game that has cutscenes outside of the intro, so that's pretty cool. Must mean the animator's rent was due. Now that is pretty much everything so far in Palworld. I'll need to say this now, since this game still is in early access, this isn't really a review, and on top of everything I played, I don't even think I've experienced half of the stuff you're able to do in this game. So I just want to let you know what you're gonna get yourself into if you choose to get this game right now. Now, since I've kind of glossed over this a little bit, let's talk about the pros and cons of the game. I think just for the sake of getting things over with, I'm gonna talk about the cons real quick. For starters, that stupid Black's launch screen. I was under the impression I wasn't even gonna be able to play the game, which nearly made me cry, but it worked out, so now I'm happy. Secondly, the game at certain points really doesn't feel all that optimized. Now, I do understand since I was playing this on PC, this has probably got 100% everything to do with my hardware, but from time to time, the game does tend to chug quite a bit. And in a lot of these cases, it mainly happened at my base because it looks like an overcrowded prison, and sometimes the game does tend to drop a few frames when you're out and about in the world, so I really don't know what could be causing this. Other times, the game has a tad bit of a funky launch from time to time, meaning that everything tends to load in quite slowly. I do understand, I'm playing this game on an external hard drive. I just find it incredibly funny when I'm T-posing around the map, and in one instance my character got gender swapped, which was hilarious. But the biggest offender out of all of my cons is that sometimes the AI of both your enemies as well as your pals are fucking stupid. Most of the time the enemy AI shows a lack of self-preservation during raids, sometimes these enemies will kick the crap out of me, and other times I just feel bad for killing them because look at this. Now this could be another whoops it's me fault problem because I built my base at the very first part after the intro, but sometimes my pals AI just bugs out and they're not even able to eat without me force feeding them, and I'm sure that might be a kink for some of them, but it's not something I'm very comfortable with doing. Once again, these aren't really game breaking enough to the point I wasn't able to get things done, but son of a bitch, I do tend to question the intelligence of these guys. But I do think I complained enough though. Time for the stuff I really like in Palworld. Firstly, the art style and the sense of scope that the game goes for. This is where I think that the comparisons to Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring are the most apparent, but I don't care. And my love for the art style extends to both the biomes and the pals themselves. Yes, some of these pals may seem a little bit derivative, but at the very least they're recognizable, and you'll need to desensitize yourself pretty hard to not feel bad for ending them if you don't catch them. The map itself is extremely massive, and each biome has its own distinct theme that makes it unique to explore. And that sense of discovery when you find a small settlement or a dungeon by just exploring is so satisfying. Also satisfying is the combat. Whilst melee combat really does take a backseat once you get proper firearms, the gunplay is still really solid, and it's just awesome to plan out a battle against a higher level pal, knowing when it's safe to fire, keep your distance, and let your pal do most of the dirty work. And that intense feeling when you land a pal sphere on it, and you just watch that gauge go up and hear that little jingle go off when you finally caught the thing. The progression and the push for it really feels good as well, because everything you do gives you and your pals XP. Obviously, doing things like catching pals will give you more, but at the end of the day, you're still gaining XP, meaning that you are working more and more to that level so you can craft the next big item you've been eyeing the whole time. And honestly, there's just so much content in this game that you'll be busy long after booting this thing up. And the most important part? The game is just incredibly fun, whether you go at it alone or with a group of friends. Me and my BB made Jason and Nemeki, and we are so funny. And that's pretty much my overall thoughts on Palworld. But if you need more of a reason as to why I recommend this game, then look no further than my play hours on Game Pass. Within the time the game launched till me writing the script, I've sunk over 50 hours into the game just within a week. And anybody who knows me should know I rarely get into games at such a high level. Truly, I love this game that much. And if you want a little bit more proof, you know how I said at the beginning of this video that history was made? Well, if you've been on the internet long enough, you'll know that this game blew up to proportions I'm convinced nobody was able to predict. Sales reaching nearly 10 million in the week it's been out. Player numbers exceeding some of Steam's most popular games. Yeah, I think it's safe to say Palworld went mainstream, and that's awesome to see such a small team was able to create something that surpassed everybody's expectations. But now it's time to go a little bit sour on you. With any game's popularity, you're always going to get that select few people who are going to be ass hurt by its success, regardless of whether or not it's justified. And Palworld is no exception to garnering a little bit of controversy. The first and the most famous one is whether or not the game was made using AI. Now, as of right now, it has come out that some of these accusations are baseless, but if AI was using the game, yeah, I can understand why some people are pissed. Aside from Asmongold. But I think the most disgusting thing out of all of this that's been going on regarding Palworld is its obvious inspiration to Pokémon and how that fanbase has been acting in response to this game's success. You're obviously gonna get these assholes that will just claim it's nothing but a soulless ripoff, but come the fuck on, you Reddit-dwelling morons. Where was this hate for Digimon or Bakugan or anything that used the formula that Pokémon made popular back in its inception? But now here comes a small little indie project that might honestly just be more popular than its inspiration at the moment. And now you take issue to the point where you're issuing them death threats while sucking on the dick of a company that practically feeds you half-assed piles of shit games that don't even work or run half the time? That's just honestly pathetic, and I really hope Nintendo could just step in and do something about this dumb shit. Oh, never mind, they stepped in alright to investigate the game. And for all we know, they're probably going to try to take these guys to court because a big-ass company like Nintendo, especially Nintendo, can't stand the fact that there's something that could potentially overshadow their fucking cash cow they've been milking dry for the last couple of years. Seriously, dude, fuck Nintendo. But what I can say is that I'm really happy that Palworld was able to take off like it did. The game is just such a joy to play, and you should definitely check it out on either Game Pass or on Steam, whatever tickles your pickle. But with all of that being said, if you guys like this video, maybe consider liking or subscribing. If you want to help support the channel, feel free to become a member or join the Patreon. I go sleep now. Goodbye. Love you.